Good afternoon. I am just very pleased to be here. Are we operating on both mics? I assume so. We got Jorge Paulo's. We want to make sure they can hear you. Great. I would just like to begin with the idea being here that this is a wonderful chance to learn from a truly great teacher. Jorge Paulo, we all know him as a businessman. We all know him as a very effective deployer of philanthropy and as a role model to many of us. I mean, what role models do is I had these wonderful conversations earlier with a number of young people here and talking about the idea of having role models like Jorge Paulo that are like a magnet. They sort of elevate us and lift us up. But I think that what a lot of people maybe haven't quite as experienced is the fact that in his deep core, Jorge Paulo is a teacher. And that explains as much as anything of what he's been able to do. So our task is to help that teacher come out for all of us. I have the privilege to be able to kind of guide the conversation, and we've been friends for now almost a quarter of a century. And so to some extent, it's a bit of a conversation between friends that we get to share with all of you. And the place where I'd like to begin is where the introduction began a little bit and kind of finding our way in life. Let me just see a show of hands. How many of you are well before the age of 30 and have some sort of angst about what it is you're going to do with yourself and your life? Okay, wonderful. We were there once too. And last night at dinner, I said to Jorge Paulo, you know, you're one of these people who kind of found your hedgehog early. We talk about this in Good to Great, the idea of knowing your hedgehog, what you're passionate about, what you're encoded for, and how you have an economic engine to pursue your BHAGs, your big, hairy, audacious goals. And Jorge Paulo corrected me. He said, actually, it took me a decade. My 20s were actually a time where I was really wandering and trying to figure it out, which I think is a great relief, because many of us think you have to have it figured out, but actually it was a decade. And so I'd like to begin, Jorge Paulo, with a question of maybe you could describe for folks what your sort of 20s were like and how long it took before things to click for you.
Before I start, I want to mention that, you know, you think you're going to be interviewing me, but I think you actually have a lot to say, you know, and so I'm going to question you back at times, and I think, you know, I think that will be to the benefit of the audience, quite frankly. And Jim has been a mentor and a source of great learning, you know, for the last 25 years. Basically, all the work he has done in building firms for the long run had a tremendous influence in all our investments and all the things we do. So he is really a great teacher, and I think most of you, you know what I do and the things I believe in and like that. And so I think you'll benefit a lot from hearing from him what he thinks and how he thinks. So this is your opportunity, and I'll make sure that I ask him the right questions also.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the 20s, we're sort of, everybody sort of thinks that you have a very clear idea of where you're going to go and like that. I really didn't know. I graduated from Harvard when I was 20, so I was very young. And then I went to Europe and played tennis for a year and decided that wasn't what I wanted to do like that. Then I came back to Brazil and I joined a whole bunch of Ivy League guys from Princeton, Yale, Harvard, and like that, who were setting up a finance company. And at that point, I thought anybody who had been to the Harvard Business School was really a genius and was certain to be a success. We went broke in 3 years, entirely broke. So, you know, yeah, good lesson of reality and learning by. And then I sort of, I never really wanted to work at a big company, so I stayed in small financial institutions, and eventually in 1971, I finally bought a brokerage house, and I was 31 by then, and the previous 10 years had sort of been going in one direction, the other direction, finding my way. So it's only when I was 31 that I felt that I got going, really. So if you don't know what you're going to do right after you get out of Harvard or you leave your university, that's not a problem. I mean, you'll find your way eventually, but give it some time, and do what you like and do it well.
How did you know when you'd found it? I mean, was there a sense of like tumblers going in where it went click, or?
Yeah, I actually enjoy the dynamics of financial markets and of trading. My family in Switzerland had been cheese traders for 700 years. So trading is sort of part of we're not intellectuals, we've always been traders, and so financial markets were, a lot of trading, a lot of action. I also am a guy that likes action. I'd rather be doing something than reading something or like that. And so financial markets were interesting for me. It was also an opportunity to make some money relatively fast. If I'm going in another direction these days. I'm building for the long run and to make money for the long run. When you start off, you sort of have to make money faster, and so financial markets were interesting in that sense.
One of the, I think, common misconceptions of you is that you're kind of the recipe of the great success you have has been in being a financial genius. And I'm not saying you're not a financial genius, but but I think the recipe has been about something else than that. That really that wouldn't really be the explanation. So could you chat a little bit about when now you kind of look at the arc of what you've done and you've created, are the real key ingredients to that success as you see it? What's in the recipe?
I'm definitely not a financial genius. My mathematics are really poor. I hardly know how to multiply, and I'm only a financial genius at home because when I moved to Switzerland, my wife, who is Swiss, wanted me to act like a Swiss husband and fix the electricity at home and carry crates around and like that. So the way I found to get out of that, I said, I'm a financial genius. I can't be submitted to. So that's the only place.
Although I still remember in 08, 09, I asked you, how are you, how's the financial crisis doing? And you said, I'm moving a lot more crates and furniture.
Yeah.
So
well, anyway. So I think what I did best, and it was sort of a surprise to me, was really putting teams of people together, finding great people, incentivizing them, working together with them, giving them a chance to shine, enabling them, and I think that's the most important thing that I really did, and dreaming big together with them, and so that's what I've done well, and it's not something that I knew. I was basically a tennis player or a surfer, and those are individual sports. You play by yourself, you compete by yourself, like that, and all of a sudden I fell into this thing that I didn't have money, I didn't have a name, and so the thing I had to build on was really attracting the best possible team, and so I put a big effort into that, and so that's really been my story for the last 50 years almost, just attracting very good people and having a common dream and building on that, and always building, always thinking forward and moving ahead forward, you know.
And this, you know, we've talked before about those three words, dream, people, and culture, going together. And now we can see that very clearly. But it evolved organically to where you could have it. At what point do you think it was really clear to you that it was dream, people, culture? And given how simple it is, I mean, I think that's one of the things that people often think there must be a complicated answer, but it's actually a fairly simple answer. If it's so simple, why don't more people do it?
The dream part is easy. As I always say, dreaming big or dreaming small, it's the same effort, so you might as well dream big. So that's easy. The people factor is something that you really have to work hard at. And most people think of business selling a product, and you have a very good product to sell, or you have a very special strategy, and after I began attracting very good people to work with me, I found that was more powerful almost than what you were doing or what the product was, you know. Just getting the right people on board and attracting them, and then you would find something interesting to do. But it's a continuous effort, you know. It's a continuous effort. And when I started, I was hiring maybe 10 people a year. I was interviewing 1,000 people per year to pick the 10 best. And nowadays, our trainee programs, the AMBEF trainee program in Brazil, which has 35, 40 people a year, has 80,000 candidates. And now we have trainee programs all over the world, in China, in Europe, in the U.S., and like that. And it's a big, big effort. And our boards, when they travel, one of the first things they do is have breakfast or dinner with the trainees. So trainees are really important for us. We follow people, how they're doing. We know exactly who is on a fast track. We follow how people are remunerated and try to make it attractive for them. So and we evaluate people. We evaluate people very closely every year. So it's a big job, and we never delegate it to the human resource department. It's always the principal executives of the company that are involved with this and following this. So we give it much more emphasis than most other companies. So having the right people and knowing what they're doing is as important to us as selling or having the right products or having the right logistics or like that.
I'd just like to pause here for a moment and just provide a little kind of observation and reflection that I've had over the years watching Jorge Paulo and also from some of our work, which is, most of us, we kind of come at life as a series of what questions. What am I going to do? What career? What company? It's about what, right? What? And I think that what Jorge Paulo has shifted to early in his life is the idea that actually the first questions are always who, right? Who are you going to allow to mentor you? Who do you want to spend your time with? I mean, you can be doing a lot of what's with your life, but if you're not doing it with people you love doing it with, it's really hard to have a great life. But if you're doing a range of possible what's, but you got the right people, you can figure it out. And that notion that it's sort of first who, and then we'll figure out where to drive the bus, that is something that we see here. What's also interesting is, who would have ever thought that there are strategic synergies from investment banking to beer? Right? I mean, think about it, right? Going from and then buy a beer company and then begin building it. Well, actually, because what it was a people machine, and it was exporting a culture that could go across a range of industries, because it was all fundamentally, if we have the right people, they can figure out how to do stuff. If we don't have the right people, it doesn't matter if we have the right strategy. And it also provides that sense of energy, because if you get great young people, let me just share one little story. Jorge, Paulo, and I, when they were on the verge of buying Anheuser-Busch, the board was at my lab in Boulder, and Jorge Paulo says to me, because I always try to they love to dream big, but then they sometimes love to dream really big, right? And I was trying to be this little bit of voice of challenge and reason, and he said, I get the sense that you're a little nervous about this. And I said, yeah, I am. It's a $50 billion transaction. It makes me nervous. And he says, Jim, you don't understand. You don't understand my problem. I have too many great young people, and I've got to give them big things to do. Never underestimate the power of that momentum of you get great people. If you're going to do if you are going to get the best climbers, you got to give them the hardest climbs. And then the flip side is once you set off on those, if you set then next big things to do, guess what? You need more great people. But then, you got more great people. You got to have bigger things to do. And then now that you got big things to do, you need more great people. And this notion of this flywheel that we get great people, we give them big things to do is a reinforcing cycle. And if I were to sort of stand back and say what I think is kind of part of the secret sauce, that's the secret sauce. It's a people thing. It's people doing big things, and the best people always want to do the hardest things. On people.
Just to mention, I mean, I've been around Warren Buffett lately and a lot, and Warren is also a people person. He doesn't train the people or have the teams or the trainees or like that, but basically, he buys very good firms, which he thinks are very good, and where there's somebody he likes that can run it. And, he has told me very many times, I only do business with people I like, and that's it. If I don't like them, I won't do it. And we've actually had situations together where we were in a deal, and the deal was financially interesting or like that, and he said, no, I don't like the people there. No deal. So if you can get through life only dealing with people you like or who are, it's nice. It's nice, and it's easier to make things work.
You were mentioning Warren there, and it brings me to another question, which is you've been a mentor to many. I consider myself somebody where you've been a mentor for me as well. But I'd love to hear about some of the mentors you had and what they taught you, because you're a product of mentors, and now other people are going to be affected by your mentorship, but who were your mentors and what did you learn from them? Warren might have been one, there might have been others.
Well, my first big mentor was my mother, obviously, and my mother, I lost my father when I was 13, so my mother was a big influence, and my sister was 10 years older than me, so my mother and me were sort of pretty much on our own, and she did a lot of mentoring, and she was a very loving mother, which allowed me to do everything. I did all sorts of crazy things, and she still thought it was great, like that. So that was sort of.
Did you know about all of them?
Probably most of them, but it was interesting because I probably had a lot more leeway than most people in terms of trying things or doing things and like that. So I think it actually helped me later. And at university I had a couple of mentors, but I was trying to get through university so fast that it really wasn't nothing exceptional or like that. And then when I began working, had some pretty good mentorships. We were close to Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs had some very smart people there, and we became very close to them. We didn't represent them in Brazil, but we did a lot of deals with them in Brazil. And some of the partners were really savvy people there. and and had been around for a long time. And I would say that the people system, the system of hiring good people and training them and like that, we basically learned from them. I mean, that's where we sort of picked it up and saw it as an opportunity to make us more competitive in Brazil. And they were very good at that. They still are. And and they were a partnership in that day, which I think they were a better firm as a partnership than they are as a public company. And but despite having become a public company, they still put a lot of emphasis on training people and having the best people, and that's why they became the best investment bank, one could say. So they were important in learning about things, and then when we bought Lojas Americanas, and we came close to Sam Walton, and Sam was a terrific mentor and very friendly guy, and we used to go to Bentonville and live with him, and used to tour the shops. So we learned about running a bigger business and attracting the right kind of people for that business also, and talking to him, and like all brilliant people, and geniuses, I would say, he very simple thinking. I mean, he wasn't complicated at all, and he could simplify all his answers and had simple answers to everything and like that. But actually, I met Jim. You might talk about that, Jim. I met Jim because of Sam Walton.
Yes, it was because of Sam Walton. So it's funny how life, so we were talking earlier about people, right? And one of the things that we've learned in our work is that we were very interested in the question of what role do luck events play, right? Because life has got good luck and it's got bad luck. And then the question becomes, when you study the question of luck and you actually quantify it and define it in a rigorous way, you begin to ask the question, are big winners in fact luckier than their comparisons? And just as an aside, you find the answer is no, they're not. But what they do get is a higher return on luck. They get more of the luck events that they have, and whether they be good luck or bad luck. And but there's a special type of luck which is called who luck. Right? It's the luck of a great mentor or a great friend stumbling across some fortuitous intersection of life where you cross paths with somebody who could potentially completely change your life. That's the luck event. And then the question becomes, what happens with that and with the relationship? So our luck event was there was a person who was going to be teaching a section of an executive education course, and I can't remember why I got tossed in there. I was way too young to do this. I think I was like 31 or 32 years old. And there was like a vacancy. Anyways, I went in and I was teaching this exec ed course, and sitting in the front row was Jorge Paulo. But I had no idea who Jorge Paulo was. So I go off and I'm starting to talk about Walmart and what Walmart did and what Sam did and, and sort of all these sorts of things. And Jorge Paulo is kind of looking at me and starts to argue with me, so this is great. He's like, no, I don't think that's how Sam thought about it at all. I think he was more thinking about this. And we went back and forth, and I said, well, the research says this. Finally, Jorge Paulo says, well, Sam's a friend of mine, right? Which sort of trumped the data. And we ended up with our argument continuing on in the hall. And the real question was that really ignited our conversation was a question that I had for Jorge Paulo, which is, are you really building something to last? Right? And what would it take to do that? And he said, yes, I think we are. And that ignited what is now a 25-year friendship. That's how we started. Great luck event. I should have other people get sick more often so I can step in and teach their classes. I would love to just ask one other question on the people piece of it, which is just how long has your partnership with Marcel and Beto been going now?
45 years.
45 years. Okay, so think about this. Okay, so Hulak, they find each other, they start building this thing, but 45 years through everything that's happened of this, and I've seen them operate together. I've seen them under incredible strain together, such as in the 08-09 crisis when the board was in Boulder. I mean, and this partnership is unbreakable. I mean, it's an extraordinary partnership, and it's worked for all that time. All of us would be so fortunate to have a great partnership like that. You were talking about the Goldman when it was a partnership. What makes it work? What's in the secret sauce that makes that partnership endure and be a great partnership?
Well, it evolved gradually. It was Darwinian. I mean, it didn't. I had a lot of people working with me, and some made it, some didn't make it, and so it evolved gradually that they were the best, really, and they were the best because in a certain way they have different abilities from mine. So we had strengths, and the way it evolved gradually was that we decided that, that we could do much more together than we could do by ourselves. And so that's it. It has worked, and I think it has worked also because I really believe having good people around you and better people than you around you is worth it. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that says I know everything, I know how to do it better, or like that. And I like having very good people. I like having people that are better than me. Like I said, I know no math, so I have to have other guys around me who know things, and so it evolved gradually, and we found out that we could do much bigger things together than we could do by ourselves. And
what happens when you have real disagreements?
Well, we, Bertha will scream a lot, as everybody knows. Everybody who knows him. And Marcel is more moderate. He has strong opinions, but he won't scream as much. And I'm a moderate guy, so I try to calm everybody down, and basically we will only do something if we are in agreement. We will discuss it, and it can be discussed, but basically it only moves forward if there is agreement, and that if everybody else convinces everybody.
So part of it is just, so essentially on any really big decision, the three of you all have to be in agreement.
Yes.
And so if you can't get to that point, you preserve the partnership.
That's right.
Over the opportunity.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to mention that in our, we've been in business now for 45 years or like that, and the partnership works well. But we have had, over 100 partners in our business, partners in the financial partner in everything. And we have had partners in business, and we have joint ventures with a lot of people. And so, we've had a lot of them. And we've never gone to court on anything, Many people always go to court. Or there's some people that love fighting. It's not that we're not tough. We have our views, but we always try to arrange things that if there's a fight, there's a way out before the fight, or that you find a way out before fighting. So and that has saved us a lot of time. It has really saved us a lot of time. And if we have a partner and there's a disagreement, we will go to him and say, we'll buy you out at this price. At what price would you buy us out, or something like that? And let's resolve it and get it over and done with. And I value this greatly. And so I think our partnership has also been like that. Let's thrash it out. Let's get it resolved and preserve the partnership, but let's get it done and over with, and not nobody has bad feelings or anything like that. So,
Yeah, one of the things that I just would highlight that I wanted to provide a little context for everyone here is one of the things that we've learned about people who build really great enterprises of any kind is what we came to call these level 5 leaders. And level 5 leaders are the ones who, the real signature of the level 5 is that it's not about them. And that they are incredibly ambitious people, incredibly competitive people, incredibly driven people. They really want to build or do great things, but in the end, that ambition is all channeled into something that's bigger, more important, and more lasting than they are. That's what it's about. It's not about them and what they get or how they look. And that within that is a very deep streak of genuine humility combined with tremendous will. Will for the sake of, look, the partnership's going to win, or the long-term approach of what we're going to do here is going to win, and that we are going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, I want to aspire to be the dumbest person in the room, right? Because if I really do great people, then I aspire to have great people around. It takes genuine humility to do that. And we live in a very egocentric culture. We live in a very narcissistic time. And I think one of the things I really hope that some of you see in this room is the fact that somebody over the course of many decades can become one of the most successful people in the world at what they do. With it's not fundamentally about them, and it can come with a genuine streak of humility and ambition for something that is larger than them. I would love to see more of that in our world today. That said, as a level 5, you've probably made some mistakes, had some failures, and we all. And one of the things about reading biographies, I was talking earlier with some wonderful young people, and they were asking about, how do you learn and so forth. And one thing is to read biographies. And if you read enough biographies, you see pretty much everyone remarkable had towering weaknesses and massive failures and times when they got decked. I mean, just absolutely flattened in life. But they got back up over and over again. And Jorge, Paulo, I'd love for you to maybe share, it's not like you've had a perfect record. Right? You're not 100-0. You've had some failures. You've made some real mistakes. What stands out in that, and what did you learn from it, and how do you deal with it when you just basically look at yourself and you say, man, screwed that up?
Oh, well, like originally I was a tennis player, and if you're a tennis player, you win, you lose, and so you're accustomed to losing once in a while, and what you do then is you try to figure out how you can do better next time, and so failure was not something that was absolutely strange to me or like that. And I went broke when I was 26 and entirely broke. And, it was very traumatic. I thought I was the hottest thing around, quite frankly, and went broke and had to scramble a lot for a little while. So that was a big failure. And then, there were other failures along the way. And, we had setbacks in the financial market. And the markets didn't quite go where the direction we expected and like that. And we lost a lot of money. And, there's a funny story there. In 76, there were these government bonds, and we used to carry big positions of these bonds. And the finance minister was Marihiki Simonsen, and famous economist in Brazil. And at one moment, he decided that inflation had to be stopped, and one way to reduce inflation was to reduce the yield of these bonds, because they yielded inflation plus interest. And so he simply clipped off 4% from the monetary correction, and so we had a big position of these bonds, and we lost a significant amount of money. And I went in to complain to him, and he was known as a very famous mathematician and very good at math and like that. And I told him, well, we had this position of bonds, and we lost 4% on it. And he said, well, you lost $800,000, and that's, you can live that. And I said, not $8,000, $8 million, which for us was a big amount of money. And he said, $8 million, my God. I didn't realize it was that much. But I did give you an investment bank charter, so get out of the office, go to work, and and that was it. So $8 million was more than our net worth, quite frankly, but he did give us an investment bank charter, which allowed us to build a bigger business up front and like that. So you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep learning,
Yep.
and there were many other tough spots and difficult moments like that, but you keep going.
One of the things that has become clear to me as I study lots of companies and people, and also you see it in Jorge Paulo as well. We were talking earlier about the idea of return on luck, but there's this really key phrase I'd love for all young people to embrace, which is the idea that luck favors the persistent, right? So you're going to have good hands and bad hands in life, and you might get a bad hand early. You might go broke at 26. You might have come from a difficult place, right? You get a bad hand early. And if you see life as sort of coming down to a single hand, well, then it's very easy to lose, because what if that's a bad hand? But if you sort of look at it as actually life's a series of hands. And the key is you got to play every hand to the best of your ability. And sometimes you get good hands and sometimes you get bad hands. But you got to stay at the table. You got to stay in the game and keep playing. So if you get 6 tails in a row and you leave the game, there's no chance the heads will ever happen again. Right? So you've got to stay in and play over the very long time. True creators stay in the game. What would have happened if Steve Jobs would have quit just because he got fired from Apple? Right? Well, none of us would have iPhones. Right?
Yeah,
luck favors the persistent.
The phrase I like best in relation to luck is what Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, used to say: luck is always the result of a lot of sweat.
Yeah. True, that too.
If you sweat a lot, you work, you try hard, and you're focused, it comes by at some moment, but it doesn't come by if you're not there in the spot, if you're not working hard and sweating.
So we're going to shift here in a minute to a few questions about Brazil, because I know those are on everyone's mind. But before we get there, I'd like to ask one or two other questions. The first is, if you could put yourself in a time machine and go back to when you were around the age of many of the people in this room, well, we've been going 35. Yeah. We get 1 hour. Yeah, we're at 35 minutes. Yeah, I've been watching the clock, just to be clear. So just so everybody knows where we are, we started at 5. We're going to go to about 6. Is that good with everybody? Can we do that? Okay, great. I want to make sure we got time for Jorge Paulo. So if I could put you in a time machine, speaking of time, and send you back to when you were 20, and I could give you 10 minutes or 5 minutes with yourself as a 20-year-old, and you're like, hi, I'm back from the future. What would you tell yourself, your younger self at 20? What do you wish you would have understood better then that is so clear to you now?
I think what really changed was my perspective of time. I mean, when I was 20, and you have to go back to my background. Like I said, I was, a tennis player, a surfer, and I was thinking of the next 24 hours only, and how could something happen fast and better tomorrow than a week from then, or like that. And now that I'm 76, I realize that, gee, the things that I was doing when I was 20 or when I was doing with 30 had such a tremendous effect later on in my life, And maybe if when I was 20 I had thought a little longer term and not being so focused. And then when I started business life, I was in financial markets also. Financial markets are short-term oriented, most of them also. So, the fact that, so it took me a while to figure out that things take a long time to happen, and what you do when you're 20 is going to have a big effect when you're 35, and what you do when you're 30 is going to have a much even bigger effect when you're 50 and like that. So, I think my advice to myself would be think longer term. Think longer term, and don't only think of what's going to happen in the very near future and like that.
Never forget, most most overnight success stories are at least 20 years in the making. Let's talk a little bit about Brazil. And one of the questions that some of the students put together was, I'd like you to imagine that 3G just acquired Brazil. And so you now have Brazil Inc. in your portfolio. What are the top 3 changes that 3G would make to improve Brazil now that it's part of your portfolio, along with ABI, Kraft, Heinz, etc.?
Okay. Before I answer it, I'm gonna tell you a little story. I was on an advisory board of Daimler Chrysler, and another member of that advisory board was Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore, who created Singapore and built up Singapore and like that. So I often went to meetings with him, and I would make a point of sitting next to him because the guy was really something, and I think one of the most impressive people I've ever known, really. And Singapore proves it, and like that. So in one of the meetings, I said to him, you've done really well here in Singapore. Singapore has 6 million people, etc. And I come from a country with 200 million people, etc. Lots of problems and like that. So and you've done a pretty good job in Singapore. And do you think you could fix up Brazil also, something that's much bigger? And he said, sure, I could do it. It's all the same. I can manage anything. So I said, could you manage Daimler Chrysler also? Yeah, sure I could, So, well, I'm not quite as confident about as Lee Kuan Yew was about fixing Brazil. And, and I've really never been in politics, never been involved in politics. In fact, today I was in some of the sessions, and I sort of feel it's sad that I've never been involved. I really don't know much about it, don't know how it works. And 2 weeks ago, I visited the governor of Mato Grosso, and this guy has put together a team of young people, the best possible people, so he's on the right track. No appointees, are just people he knows and who are good at certain things, but he went over the problems that he has in managing the government and with all the public functionaries and things like that, and it's a daunting task. So I'm not sure. First, I don't know anything about politics. I've never been in politics like that. But despite all that, I think some of the things that we do at 3G could be done in Brazil and would help Brazil. I mean, if you could only put a good team of people together to do whatever you want to do, if you can have some sort of a common agreement as to what is the big dream, which everybody agrees with that, and that was one thing Lee Kuan Yew told me. I have Malays, Indians, Chinese here. They think differently, so I have to have something that they all believe in and that they all aspire to. And I have to, and that's what's going to make this work. And then, the other things we do, good people, have a big dream, have the right information also. If you get the right information, that helps. if you try to do things as efficiently as possible, that helps. And if you're willing to run some risks, and if I was running Brazil, I have no ambitions to run it, but I think the risk I would take, I would bring in a whole bunch of young people, young people, you people who are around here, and people who, and that's who could work together even though they might have different ideas. And, I think Brazil is not a leftist country. It's not to the right either. The only path is sort of along the center. And we do have to work on reducing inequality. Inequality is a real problem. I mean, you're never going to have enough stability if you have inequality. So you have to have more equality. So, but I think the basic formula is getting good people to run things, having a big dream, having the right information, following the right information, taking some risks, etc.
Any thoughts as to what a big dream for Brazil could be?
Well, I think the biggest dream for Brazil is basically reducing inequality, because I live in Switzerland now for diverse reasons, and I'd like to come back to Brazil, but I'm in Switzerland, and it's great to live in a society where there's a lot more equality, and there are rich people there, and there are some poor people, but basically it's very equal, and everybody has an equal chance. I mean, not everybody's the same, but everybody has an equal chance. They go to the same school, they go the same doctors, so they get to university if they're good. And so it's a much happier society if you have equality like that, which obviously doesn't mean I don't like entrepreneurs, and I don't think you can build a country without entrepreneurs either. That's what changed China when they unleashed the entrepreneurs. So you have to have entrepreneurs. You have to have people chasing things and building things. Well, you have to have more equality. Otherwise, it won't work.
You've often said to me that the idea of, that whenever you and your partners have faced times of crisis and chaos, to view them as opportunities and to really grab them as opportunities. How could people in this room and in Brazil grab the current crisis as an opportunity?
Well, I think there will be a lot of political reshuffling in the next 2 years, and I suspect some new faces are going to come up, newer people. There are young people here I know who are interested in politics or interested in going into government, something which I never had the chance because there was a military government when I was there. So I think, there's going to be an opportunity in the next 2 years to latch on to newer faces, newer people in politics, and for them to play a role. So I think that will be an opportunity. There will be an opportunity for new ideas. Many of the people here, the advantage of this forum, the seminar, is a discussion of new ideas and how do you get together and how do you work these new ideas together without conflict and like that. So I think there will be a lot of opportunity.
Any thoughts?
I regret that I'm sort of too old and have never been in politics, but so I'm delegating that to the younger crowd to take advantage of.
What would you say to them?
Yeah, get out there and do it and fix Brazil and find a common road You know, if we're going to be quarreling, we're never going to get there. If we get together and we have groups of people who have different ideas but can talk together and be more pragmatic, like that, we can build a wonderful country, you know. Brazilians are great. They have a wonderful capacity to get along with other people, with one another, like that. You know, that's an important trait when I look around the world and look at the Middle East, and everybody's killing each other, and everybody has a border problem, and like that. You know, Brazil really doesn't have that. And so if we can only find a common direction and be a little bit more disciplined about it. We're really not very disciplined, and we're really not very pragmatic. And so I hope this younger group of people are going to get together and find a common ground and a common road and be more pragmatic. What is really important? What are the issues we have to resolve? How do we resolve them? And let's get them resolved and like that, you know. So that's what I'm hoping for.
You have, when you think about young people and the role they can play and the tremendous impact that they can have. Last night at dinner, you told me that you started your scholarship program of bringing people to the U.S. and then they could cycle back through. It's kind of into the blood flow of Brazil 35 years ago. And without anybody really knowing about it, you just started doing it. How many people in this room are one way or another, right? Okay, so there are a number of you who are here as pieces of that. You've been doing this for years. Why did you start by investing in bringing people to get their education here and to go back? We'll talk about K-12 in a moment. The origins of that's the way you've chosen to contribute. Why that versus other things?
Well, like I said, in business, I discovered that people were the really important thing. I also discovered that if you enable people and you give them a chance, they really flourish, you know. So I thought, you know, yeah, great, I'm here, I'm running the businesses are doing well, I'm contributing to Brazil in that sense, but maybe I can make a contribution to Brazil besides running our business efficiently and doing well. Maybe I can, you know, contribute more by creating more people who are going to not necessarily work with me, but are going to go out and do their own thing or set up their own business. Or lately, you know, I've been giving a lot of scholarships in the areas of education, of public policy, governance, and things like that. So, you know, like I said, what worked in business, I sort of hope will work for the country also. And that these, over 1,000 people that I have now that I've somehow helped and who have had the opportunity to come to the U.S. and learn from a different viewpoint and live in a more pragmatic society, you know, and I hope they can come back and do what they've learned in Brazil, and maybe we can even export this culture of Brazilian friendliness, Brazilian not wanting to kill each other and like that, but being more efficient. Maybe we can export that over the coming centuries, like we've exported our business philosophy. You know, our business philosophy now travels in the U.S. and China and like that. So why can't Brazilian governance eventually, a more friendly governance of more, not so abrupt and more pragmatic government, why can't that travel abroad someday also?
And what's your big dream for K-12, K-12 education in Brazil? Because I know you're putting a lot of effort into that. What's the big dream?
Actually, I think education is the most important thing that we can do for Brazil. And if people are better educated, they will have a better chance. They will have a better opportunity. They will know how to vote better. So I've invested a lot in education, not only through the scholarships programs abroad, but we're bringing the Khan Academy to Brazil, and we're now in 200 public schools. That's small in comparison to the numbers that you have of public schools, but it's a start. I think we have education is going digital, and so the Khan Academy is a way to get students started in digital learning. It's a way that you don't have to upset the local teachers also, because they learn from the Khan Academy system and they can manage it. So so I'm very bullish about that. And I'm also backing some young entrepreneurs who have started some K-12 schools in Rio, and they bought a school originally, Elite in Madureira. That's in the suburbs of one of the head guys, the fellow, Von Vogel, who introduced me, is from Elite School, and he's now at Harvard. So, so that's progress. But anyway, these girls I back, they bought a school. Now they're running 50 schools with 30,000 students. They're introducing new management methods. They go to Burger King, ABI, Heinz all the time to see what they can learn about management there. They're introducing new education techniques also. So that could be, that would be a nice example of entrepreneurship in the education sector. So I'm very bullish about that. So it's always, if you back good people and give them opportunity, they will do something that's good. So that's my big bet for Brazil and all these young people here.
Yeah. As we come up on our time, I have a last question or so, and then an overall kind of close I'd like to put on. In essence, you're an optimist, right? And so, like, I remember asking Warren Buffett, so if he could choose any year in American history to be born, what would he pick? And he says, this one, right? Because our future is so bright, and is the ultimate optimist. But you have a very similar sense of optimism, a sense of that it's always pointing forward, it's always the future, it's always, and you said last night, I have no doubt, and you had it in very strong terms, bold, italicized, no doubt, that Brazil will be in a much better place 2 to 3 decades down the road than it is now. Zero question about it. What gives you that confidence? What gives you that optimism?
Well, in the first place, I'm more of an optimist than a pessimist, because I've met a lot more successful optimists than pessimists. So it's probably
so you choose the side of the coin.
Probably the right side to be on. And I graduated in 1960, and I went back to Brazil, and lots of inflation, in the hundreds of percent, and the quality of some of the public schools maybe were better than now, but few people were in public school. Now, education, at least everybody goes to school. There's the internet now. Brazil is becoming much more of a global player. They're learning. People are learning. I know people in the slums now who access the internet. I know schools in the slums that the guys want to learn English so that they can find out what's going on in the rest of the world, So, there's no way things are not going to improve, and people are going to learn how to be more pragmatic and how to pick better leaders and like that. because there's more information circulating and like that. So, and you know, I really think this younger crowd, which is coming up now, and some of these, even in government now, there's some younger governors that are good, some younger mayors, you know, and so these people are going to improve Brazil, no doubt. So it's going to be much better, much better.
No doubt.
Yeah. We have a very special guest here today. I don't know if you've noticed, but somebody from Brazil who has been very successful and has done very, very well. Gisele, would you come up and just say some words? Tell us how you did it.
Ai, meu Deus, agora eu fiquei envergonhada. Só um pouquinho, não era para falar, só ia vir escutar vocês falarem aqui. Todo mundo fala português aqui, não vou sentar. Senta aí você, pode sentar. Eu não... should I speak in English or in Portuguese?
Whatever.
Is mostly Brazilians or American? Português.
Tell us how you were so successful coming from Brazil.
Ih, meu Deus. Ok, até hoje eu não sei muito bem o que aconteceu. Não, eu acho que o que você estava falando é muito importante. Eu acho que eu sigo muito o meu instinto, assim, sabe? Eu acho que eu tive uma oportunidade. Eu acho que ter uma disciplina, ter um foco, ter clareza do que você quer. Eu tive uma oportunidade de... Então, senta aí, já que vai... Já que eu vou falar, né? Bom, para mim foi... com 14 anos, eu tive uma oportunidade de ter uma profissão que era de ser modelo. Eu não entendia nada sobre como ser modelo, mas eu sabia que se eu trabalhasse duro, se eu tivesse foco, persistência, um dia ia acontecer, né? Então você vai pelos altos, pelos baixos, né? Acho que a gente aprende muito errando também. Eu acho que isso faz parte, né? Não é como você falou. Sorry, you don't speak Portuguese, huh?
I'm getting the gist. Yeah.
So maybe I'll speak in English because he's just looking at me like, yeah, I understand. That's very rude. Okay. So I'm just saying how I started, you know, like what happened. And I just believe in hard work. I believe in being an honest person. I believe in being humble. I believe in having integrity. I think if you have those things, you know, ultimately you're going to get there, you know. And I had the opportunity, and it was the only job I felt I could do at 14. And I say, so let me try it, you know. And I just work very focused, very determined, you know. I would not take no for an answer. And I just kept going. And I moved to the United States at 16 years old. And even though I had a lot of no's, you know, more than yeses actually at the time, anytime I got a yes, I was like, I'm going to hold on to that one yes. Even though it was 50 no's, I got one yes, you know. So I would just focus on the one positive. And I think I'm a big, you know, optimist as well. And I always believed that, you know, I wasn't going to come back home empty-handed. You know, I felt like if I held long enough and if I, you know, and I never was the prettiest. You know, I'm in a job that it's about, you know, like physical appearance and stuff like that. And by no means, you know, I've always felt like, how does people even want to work with me? But I felt like the reason why is because every time I went to work, I was so happy to be there that I would just do you know, I would work 100, I would give 150%, and people couldn't help but being happy to be around me because I was just so happy, you know, to have the opportunity. And I think after a while, people are like, I'm going to work with this girl. She's always happy, and makes, you know, like talking about good people. Like everybody was like, I'd rather have her here than a girl who's coming here who's infinitely more beautiful, but is not in such a happy mood. And is not willing to work hard, you know? So I believe in working hard. I believe, you don't get things in life. I think our society today is a lot of it is very much like, I just want to have success, but I don't want to work for it. And I feel like I don't know how you get success if you don't work for it. I don't know any other way. So I just kept working and focusing on looking ahead and focusing what more can I do? What's the next step? And then one day I look back and I say, well, I feel pretty good in where I got in this profession. I'm 35 years old right now, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And I feel like, my father always says, he's a sociologist, and he says to me, we have cycles of 7. So it's funny because when I was 14, I started modeling. At 35, I'm closing this chapter of my life. It's been 3 cycles of 7. And I'm looking forward to what's the next challenge, because I believe that, in this we are here to learn, I think I always want to learn. I always want to grow. I always want to challenge myself. I feel like if I'm uncomfortable, I'm learning. If I'm comfortable, I'm not. So I always want to feel like a little bit like I don't know what I'm doing. So because then I feel like then I'm growing. And I agree, I think what you say is very important, who's around you, and who inspires you, and what are the things that move you, that make you feel passionate about, and what are the things that, bring this excitement, this that I think, I don't know, I'm a very passionate person, and again, I'm moved by that, and I believe in being a vessel for something, and I believe in, I would like to leave the world a better place. So when I'm just a vessel of some form of energy, and when I'm no longer here, I hope I have left the world a better place. So that's it. You are.
So Jim, do you want to? You're the expert. Do you want to comment on that?
I would only comment that it's always about pointing forward. I would love to put a little closing comment on our session. And having had the privilege to spend most of my life thinking about what really makes great companies and great leaders and great organizations different, had at some point to think about the question, what really defines great? What is really great? How do you know it if you're looking at it? And I would suggest that there are 3 outcomes of something that's great. You have to have superior results. Whatever game you play, you need to win at it. Distinctive impact on the world that you touch, meaning that you can actually answer the question, if our organization or what you're doing, if you weren't there, it would leave an unfillable hole. The world was actually different. People's lives were different. And the third is lasting endurance. Some kind of enduring legacy, something that actually stands time. And when you have all 3 of those, you have something that is great. I'd like to close out our session with putting those 3 on my dear friend Jorge Paulo. We talk about superior results. And I think the thing that's really key to understand is that superior results, it's not that what we have is one of the best success stories to come out of Brazil. This is right up there with Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. You want to talk about the world championships of results. The companies that other people, no matter where they come from, want to learn from. It's actually learning from what these folks have done. And it's tremendous, tremendous beacon coming out of your country by any measure. Distinctive impact. The 3G culture is being exported and is being copied. It is a distinctive contribution. It is distinctive unto itself and will have an influence. But I also like what Jorge Paulo was saying about, well, what about Brazil also having a distinctive impact by its culture being something to export versus to feel that it's not a strength. But also in Jorge Paulo's case, I think that one of the ways to have a distinctive impact is to be a role model. Right? Something where the fact that you were there and the way you did things and the integrity with which you did them acts as a magnet to affect other people's character and gives them the confidence that I can do things well, but I don't actually have to compromise who I am to do it. And of course, the impact on education. That's young people, K-12, everything that Jorge Paulo is doing there. And then lasting endurance. And I hesitate to use the word enduring legacy because I think one of the things that really stands out about Jorge Paulo is that it's always about renewal. It's always about tilting forward, being on the balls of your feet, 76 years young. We had a conversation last night about his next 10 to 15-year BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. And I hope every one of you, if you're fortunate health-wise to reach age 76, the question is, what's next? Right? What's next? What's next? One day you'll run out of breaths, but until then, what's next? Right? It's always going forward. It's not looking backwards. It's moving forward and inventing things, creating a future. And but within that notion of lasting endurance, Jorge Paulo talked if he could go back to when he was young, he would say, I would teach myself to think long-term earlier in the game. And when I met Jorge Paulo, he was already starting to think in terms of the antithesis of financial markets or quarterly earnings, right? Instead of managing for the quarter, it's managing for the quarter century. It's thinking in quarter century increments. That's a wonderful thing to do, building, building, building. But I think that the tremendous enduring legacy, and never ask somebody like Jorge Paulo to tell me the lessons of your life. Always say, so far. Right? There's a lot more to go. A lot more that's going to happen, a lot more that's next. But one thing I would highlight is it comes right back to people. And if you take a lesson from this, it's people, it's people, it's people, and impact on people. And there are some people who go through this world that what they really do is you think of all of us in this room are like little vectors going out into time and into space. And you can catch young people early and you can affect the trajectory of that vector. By the time it's over the course of their life, it's a huge sweep. And if you impact people, if you actually change the lives of others, that is a tremendous, often unseen legacy and enduring kind of impact. And Jorge Paulo, for me, I have been one of those vectors, affected, my trajectory permanently altered by the great luck of this friendship and this remarkable role model that I have in my life. And I just want to say thank you, Jorge Paulo, for who you are, for being the antidote to say that when people ask, why should I not be cynical? Well, because you are the answer to that. There's no reason to be cynical. And for all that you are going to do as well, and the impact you have on all of us. It is my tremendous privilege to be your friend.